What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism, back with another video for you today. Okay, a sensitive subject: dinosaurs, extinct species, and evolution. Now listen carefully. The following is my opinion. If you watch the evidence I give and decide that you would rather believe what you were taught, that's fine with me. You won't catch me yelling at you or going to your channel telling you to drink bleach, because you can believe whatever you want. I do this so that people who may never have considered the evidence, if they are interested in the truth, then they should do their own research. Look into everything I say here, not with a bias. Go look at the evidence. Then remember that these same people, these intellectuals, are responsible for teaching our children about evolution, about dinosaurs, about space, and about the shape of the earth. And if this kind of nonsense is going on in paleontology, what do you think is going on in space, where you can't go? Anyway, let's begin. Let's start out first with 19 species you are happy are extinct. This comes from the channel Factsverse and his video, 19 Animals You're So Glad Are Extinct. So he will tell us the animal, and to prove he's not just making this up, I will then go to Wikipedia and we can chat about each animal there. All right, you ready? Let's start at number 1.
Number 1.
Pelagornis sandersi.
This is what scientists believe to be the largest flying bird that ever existed. It has a wingspan of up to 24 feet.
All right, I'm pretty excited about animal number 1, Nancy Pelosi. Oops, sorry, that's Pelagornis sandersi. My bad. Can't say I'm glad, though, that this animal is extinct. It just seems like a big bird. It's kind of rude. It says in Wikipedia that it spent much of its time over the ocean. It also says that scientists were surprised it could fly at all because of its weight and size. But I'll tell them to get over it because we got the fossil record. So let's see, what does the fossil record say? The only known fossil... Oh, means there's only one. Can I see it? Oh, good. There we go. Oh, just a few bones and a tree branch there on the right. It doesn't really seem to me that you would know much about it just from those few bones, but it says here that you found them in a former ocean, something that was an ocean 25 million years ago. Wait, you said he spends most of his time above the ocean, but you've only found one, and you found it in a former ocean? Okay, I'll give it to you. Let's continue on. And so it had short, stubby legs, and that mixed with its gigantic size, they say it only could fly by jumping off of cliffs. So what if he swooped down and landed on the ocean, or an island, with no cliff? Well, now we know how he went extinct. He couldn't get back to a cliff. Let's look at these articles and try to find more pictures of these bones and tree branches. All right, here's one, but nope, no pictures. Let's try this one. Nope, not here either. All right, I'm pretty much over Nancy Pelosi. Let's just call her a big bird. Next.
Number 2.
Euphoberia.
This creature is very similar to the modern centipede that we see today. The only difference is that this creature is over 3 feet long.
Did I miss something? The only difference is it's 3 feet long? Well, that's just a big centipede. I'm pretty sure there's 3-foot centipedes now. All right, well, let me see the fossil. That'll give me more info on it. Thank you very much. And what do you know? You've got to pay to see the fossil. You got to pay to see that science report, you know. The science your money paid for. Now you have to pay to see the report. Makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, let's move on. I'm not into this big millipede. Just seems like maybe it grew larger, as many things did, than they do today, because there are more things to step on them or drive over them in tractors, so we can print another biology book, and they wouldn't have been driven over back then. Oh, and that reminds me, you know how they always tell us that 99% of the species are extinct? I'm sure you've seen it, it's everywhere. So I went looking for exactly what is that number of current species. So I found this article on this website, some science site, that said 8.7 million, 8,700,000 species. And so I said, okay, seems pretty definitive. It says this is a new estimated total of species on Earth The most precise calculation ever offered was 6.5 million species found on land, 2.2 million, about 25% of the total, dwelling in ocean depths. And the figure was based on an innovative, validated analytical technique that dramatically narrows the range of previous estimates. Until now, the number of species on Earth was said to fall somewhere between 3 million and 100 million. Then I glanced to the right, and if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see an article that says, Not So Crowded House? New Findings on Global Species Richness. It says planet Earth may contain millions fewer species than previously thought, and estimates are converging. According to research, a new paper reveals findings that narrow the global species estimate. So I kind of was then stuck like, well, okay, so 8.7 million, but a few million less. All right, I could see that. Then look above that. It says Earth may be home to 1 trillion species. Earth could contain nearly 1 trillion species with only 1/1000th of 1% now identified, according to a study from biologists. So the great thing about science is it's true, whether or not you believe in it. All right, let's move on to the most ridiculous made-up species number 3. I mean, species that you're happy are extinct. Whatever.
Number 3.
Gigantopithecus.
This creature lived around 9 million years ago around Asia. The way the animal's teeth and jaws are constructed, they were able to chew very tough and fibrous foods by crushing, cutting, or grinding it down.
All right, I guess this one seems pretty cool. Gigantopithecus, 9 million years ago to as close as 100,000 years ago. That's a nice run. Let's see what else here. To chew, it says it cut, crushed, or grinded its food. Well, isn't that what chew means? It says they stood at 10 feet tall. Wow, huge. But some argue it was only 6.5 feet tall. Wait. Well, don't the bones tell you the height? So they first found some ground-up teeth in a Chinese medicine shop. Well, that doesn't seem like a good find. It says since then, very few have been found, aside from some molars in a Chinese medicine shop. All right, that's good evidence. In 1955, 47 teeth were found. Ooh. And in 1958, 3 mandibles and 1,300 teeth were found. I guess they found all of this in a cave, but then they realized that the cave where they found the teeth and the mandibles wasn't a cave when said Gigantolithecus was alive, so then they said a porcupine must have brought all the teeth into the cave. Oh, nice one. I was going to start thinking that someone might have planted them in the cave, but glad you determined it was that pesky tooth-stealing porcupine. Well, it says also that the appearance is not known because of these sparse samples. Yeah, hard to know what something looks like when all you have is teeth. But then again, you'll see down here we've got pictures of what they look like on the left. So, you know. Okay, I'm over Gigantobullshiticus. I mean, no way those teeth were placed in that cave as another missing link, right? Nope. It's like, who put these teeth in here? Anyone know? It was the,
Pork. You pine. Huh? Pork. You pine. You pine. What? What is cupine? This is the greatest answer I've ever heard. I feel you. It's number 1. Oh, my mama. Pow.
No, good answer, good answer. The porcupine, he gathered up all the teeth in his handbag and brought them into the cave. Yeah, let's move on. Again, believe what you want. I choose not to believe.
It's not something to say, I choose not to believe. You don't have that option. It is true whether or not you believe in it. And the sooner you understand that.
Okay, Neil. Relax, dude. I'm sorry. I apologize. Bless me, Tyson, for I have sinned. Can I just say 10 Hail Newtons and be on my way? Hail Newton, full of space, the gravity force is with you. Blessed are thee among heathens, and blessed is the fruit that fell and freed us. Wholly vary, others are flawed. Science is for winners now and at every light hour till death and still then. Okay, I've been absolved by Father Tyson, and for those keeping score at home, currently my favorite animals are Nancy Pelosi and a close second, the porcupine stealing the teeth and placing them in caves. Number 4.
Number 4.
Andrewsarchus.
Scientists believe that these animals existed between 36 and 45 million years ago. They were a giant carnivorous mammal. Based on a skull and several of the animal's bones that were found, scientists believe that this animal weighed up to 4,000 pounds.
I don't know. Andrewsarchus, huh? Only one skull was found, and from that skull, you decided he was the largest mammalian carnivore ever? Really convincing.
It seems to me people have lost the ability to judge what is true and what is not. What is reliable, what is not reliable. What should you believe, what should you not believe?
Me too, Neil. I'm not feeling Andrew hoaxes, so let's move on.
Number 5.
Pulmonoscorpius.
This is one of the most frightening creatures that ever existed, and scientists believe that it could grow up to 30 inches long. Fortunately, this creature wasn't very dangerous to humans. Scientists believe that it fed mainly on tetrapods and arthropods.
Yeah, so Pulmonoscorpius. Fortunately, this animal wasn't dangerous to humans, you said? Let me guess why, because you say it existed 350 million years ago? Folks, if you have not looked into where these, air quotes, scientists get their ages from and these dates, please look into it. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but I'm calling Bullshitoscorpius, so next.
Number 6.
Megalania.
Megalania is a giant lizard that lived around 30,000 years ago, as they likely grew to be as long as 25 feet. If this is correct, the Megalania would be the largest terrestrial lizard to have ever existed.
Well, now, this is just a Komodo dragon, or monitor lizard. I'm not sure people know, but many animals can keep growing all their life if they can find the food. And in the past, they had less to worry about. So, kangaroos, lizards, fish, wallabies, snakes, all can grow as large as their environment allows. So, to me, this is just a Komodo dragon who got bigger, not a Megalania. But call it whatever you want. It's a big lizard. This next animal is a joke. So when Neil says,
But I don't remember any time where people were standing in denial of what science was.
well, Neil, besides evolution, which we'll get to in a little bit, and the moon landings, let me give you another reason why people might deny science. Could it be number 7?
Number 7.
Helicoprion.
This prehistorical creature lived between 250 and 310 million years ago. This creature resembles the shark, but it has a terrifying mouth. Its teeth were arranged in spiral clusters called tooth whorls. The very appearance of the shark alone is enough to make you drop from a heart attack.
All right, Helicopricon, or what should be called How Dumber We Con. Now, you're free to believe whatever you want, but let's look at what we have here. Now, almost all the specimens of the Helicopricon are the teeth. You heard me. No skull, no spine, no other structural elements, just what they call these teeth whorls. These fossilized spirals are the teeth of an ancient shark. So, hey, you can believe whatever you want. For me, I'm hella not falling for the con, but you can believe in Helicopricon if you want.
This is science. It's not something to toy with.
Hey, don't talk to me about it. Neil, you talk to those paleontologists. I'm not the one making up animals out of teeth fossils. Don't talk to me about it. Let's move on from
Number 8.
Entelodon.
This prehistoric creature was very strange looking. It was a pig-like mammal and had a very major appetite for meat.
All right, Entelodon. Well, not a lot on the wiki about this animal, probably because it's just a big boar or a big warthog. Not impressed. Not happy he's extinct. And not impressed with you making up animals because you found some toes and a kneecap. Next.
Number 9.
Animalocaris.
This sea creature was native to the Cambrian seas. Its name means abnormal shrimp, and it was closely related to ancestral arthropods. They were easily able to spot their prey because they had 30,000 lenses in each eye. They had the most advanced eyesight of any species or creature to ever exist.
Now, come on. I mean, Kamala Harris has the NSA, so those can't really be called lenses. They're just spying on Americans. Oh, Animalocaris? My bad. It looks like a big shrimp with good eyesight. Again, I'm unimpressed. Did it exist? Why not? But here's a picture of the fossil. You tell me. What do you think? Next.
Number 10.
Meganeura.
It is believed that this creature lived during the Carboniferous period. It had a wingspan of up to 26 inches. It is considered one of the largest species of flying insects to ever live on Earth.
All right, Meganeura, or big dragonfly is what it should be called. Another thing that's not well known is many animals got bigger than would happen today because of the oxygen level in the atmosphere. In the past, there was much more oxygen, so animals got bigger. Now they're smaller. It's called adaptation, something I think people who believe in evolution need to learn about because it helps many species survive here, but never will a species turn into another species. Never will a bacteria become a human being. Doesn't happen, ever. Next.
Number 11.
Attercopus.
This was a relatively frightening-looking creature. It resembled a spider and had a tail that resembled scorpions. They believe now that while this creature didn't spin webs, it may have used silk to wrap its eggs until they hatched.
All right, I guess we're on to Are We This Hopeless? I mean, Attercopus. This is just a spider, and there's lots of them. Lots of different kinds. Maybe this one's extinct, maybe it's not. But I'm guessing you wouldn't be able to tell from your little fossilized remains that it didn't spin webs, but it used silk to wrap its eggs. You think you might be just kind of speculating a little? A little too much? Let's just say we found a spider. All right, let's see what we got down here at the bottom. Looks like a science... Oh, look, a science paper. Come on, have pictures. Please have pictures. Please have pictures. Okay, here we go. All right. Oh, yeah, now I see. Yep, they are right. Let me look at this closer. I think that they might be onto something, though. Yeah, it looks like to me that it only wrapped its eggs. Okay, I got it now. Let's get an even closer. I want to make sure that I'm seeing it right. Yep. Okay, that's the spore. All right, now I see. Oh, clearly. Yep, it was nocturnal. I see that. It actually had a poor digestive system, I'm noticing. And it had padded feet and hated Thursdays. Interesting. Let's check out this one. Yep, clearly had two brothers and a sister. Looks like it liked to eat, looks like green foliage, I'm guessing. And that's what this spore's telling me here. There's some of the silk web. Definitely not used to make webs, though. You can tell by the way it's angled. And these spots mean it had leprosy. Probably was in its late 20s, early 30s. And died near a brook in a shaded area of the Yucatan under an oak tree that had a parrot in it. So, pretty impressive what we can see from fossils. Next.
Number 12.
Dinosuchus.
This is a terrifying creature that was related to the modern crocodile and alligator. They are believed to have lived between 73 and 80 million years ago. While the creature looked just like today's species, they were much larger.
Alrighty then, pretty sure that's just a big crocodile. Of course, paleo-pretenders claim that this animal lived 82 to 73 million years ago, which in reality years is actually from 14 to 11,000 years ago. So you've heard of dog years and cat years. Well, these are just called reality years. And to get those, you just drop the word billion or million off for any year that they give you, and then bring that number down and back to reality. And then you get reality years. So, large crocodile. So we got here. Next.
Number 13.
Dunkleosteus.
This creature lived during the late Devonian period, between 360 and 380 million years ago. It was a hypercarnivorous fish.
Come on, now you're just getting ridiculous. You tell us in one sentence that you haven't searched 95% of the ocean. Now you're telling us this animal is extinct. These fish are out there, not extinct. This is a terrible one. Just a big, ugly fish. I've seen tons of them. There's more. Lots more. It's not extinct. Next. But wait, was there some sort of contest, like who could come up with the stupidest name for each animal? That's my guess. There must be some sort of contest going on. Otherwise, I don't know where you come up with Dunkleosteus. Whoever won for that one, nice job. Dumb name.
Number 14.
Spinosaurus.
This creature was bigger than the T-Rex, the most well-known and feared dinosaur.
So, an interesting point when it comes to discussing dinosaurs. Number one, there was no complete skeleton ever found of any dinosaur. Ever. And these guys are also famous for hoaxes. So, just saying. Next.
Number 15.
Smilodon.
This creature lived in North and South America around 2.5 million years ago. It had very well-developed forelimbs and could weigh as much as 900 pounds. It is the last thing you would want to happen upon if you were walking through a field.
All right, now it's getting kind of ridiculous. A Smilodon is a saber-toothed tiger, and they lived around 8,000 or 10,000 or 12,000 years ago. Again, reality years, drop the millions, bring it back down to reality, and then tell people they believe in nonsense.
Number 16.
Quetzalcoatlus.
This creature was one of the largest creatures ever to fly, with a wingspan of up to 40 feet.
Here's just another case of this bird still alive. Probably lives in caves in South America. You can think it's extinct, and maybe it is because humans didn't like seeing it around and shot it with guns. Or maybe it's still around. The funniest thing about this one, though, is I got to bring up the original picture. Did you see it? Is that a brontosaurus in its mouth? Do you think they went a little bit overboard? Jeez.
Number 17.
Hallucigenia.
Scientists decided on the name hallucigenia because the creatures are so strange and they look like something from a dream, almost like a hallucination. It was a worm-like creature which was around 2 inches long. Its head did not have any sensory organs like nose or eyes. It has testicles on each side of its body and 3 sets of tentacles behind the testicles.
What would I call this animal? I mean, it's got no sensory organs on its head. It has testicles on each side of its body and tentacles behind the testicles? Yeah, I would have named it How Losers Lie to You. I think that's a better name. They look like something from a dream or something that someone made up while they were hallucinating. Yeah, let's go with How Losers Lie to You. Next.
Number 18.
Short-faced bear.
This bear could be found in North America during the Pleistocene period around 11,000 years ago.
This is just a bear. It probably lived 11,000 years ago. Oh, is that what you said? Oh, then I agree. It's just a big bear. All right, we're down to one more. Let's see who it is. Number 19.
Number 19.
Titanoboa.
This horrifying creature lived between 58 and 60 million years ago. It lived in South America, and if it still lived today, South America would not be a heavily populated area.
Or maybe, just maybe, people killed them all and then took over South America. Which do you think? So that's it. That's your list of 19 extinct species you're glad are extinct, even though I'm not really sure any of them are extinct or any of them even existed. They might exist now. You know, I was just thinking, and I don't know about you, but 19 seemed like kind of a letdown. Maybe I should add one, just so we have 20. Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to add one more. Next. Number 20.
Capybara.
This animal was truly ferocious. Scientists say it could weigh up to 200 pounds, and that it was the largest rodent ever to walk the face of the earth. It was said to have licked dogs to death, and while it enjoyed its companionship, it also enjoyed swimming in swimming pools. On cold days, the capybara enjoyed hot showers, and also was very good at diving from the sides of lakes and pools. The capybara lived, well, right now. Yeah, in case you didn't know, capybaras are real. They live right now. A lot of them. Not even endangered. So why bring them up? What's the point? Well, I find it interesting that so many large animals exist. Here you can see what many people called a hoax. Tons of people called this a hoax, and I did some research back in the past, and it's real. Believe it or not, that is a real crocodile. You can even call the golf course that they are always on, and they'll take a picture for you. So check it out. But the fact that there's these big animals tells me that these animals they're finding that they say are millions and billions of years old are simply recent, and they got large. It's that easy. So something I wanted to do, because you have to look at both sides of every story, is I wanted to look at this so-called mountain of evidence that is the fossil record. So join me and let's take a look at what I found. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these fossils. I found a website, the Virtual Fossil Museum, which seemed to have lots of fossils for us to take a look at, so let's start there. We see here a cast of the Dunkiostuus, a cast meaning a model. They say they 3D scan a real bone, but honestly, how would we know? And so a fossil is simply any remains or impression of a once living thing from a past age, but that's basically all it is. It doesn't even mean that the animal could even procreate. So here we are at the homepage. There's a Darwin quote at the top. There is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers, having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, and that, whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity. From so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved. Thank you, Charles Darwin. So yeah, this site has some fossils we can take a look at, so let's jump on in. Okay, let's see what we can find. Here is a bat fossil, and then here is a bird fossil. Now we get a dino skull, or what looks like a piece of rock. At least that's what they tell us. It's a dino skull. Looks like it could be rock to me. I don't know. Let's look at some of these fish. And all I know is if you see one of these for sale at Alibaba, I wouldn't buy it. These just look, I don't know. They look like, does that one have a child? Yeah, this one's got a child inside of it. Okay. Or it ate a fish. I don't know. See it right there? It says with 2 fish inside. All right. Yeah, I just can't believe most of this. Again, believe what you want. But especially when we're talking about the erroneous dates, and we're going to get to that with evolution here shortly. and dinosaurs. Yeah, some of these may be believable, but I don't understand. I guess I've got to talk to somebody. What do they cut slices out of rocks? That's, yeah, that one, I don't know about that one. Yeah, that one, there's your candy apple. Maybe it's caramel apple, I'm not really sure. But some of them just look ridiculous. Look at this one. Holy smokes. Oh, yeah, or that one. I think some of them are even worse than that. Let me see what we got here. These are sponges. Oh boy. That's definitely a fossil. No question about it. Yep, and this one too. Yeah, well, again, it comes down to trusting men and whether or not they have some sort of agenda. This is a fossil? Got me. Okay. And how do they cut these out? How do you know they're in there? Unless they're cutting slices. Oh boy. Isn't that from SpongeBob? I don't know. Again, if there's no reason for you to doubt what's being said, if everyone's always been honest with you, as I've said before, then you have no reason to really call into question a lot of what they say. But when you find something that is a deception or is not being handled correctly, then you have to call into question everything they do, like this. That died sitting like that, I guess. And one thing that people don't even realize is that crocodiles lose their teeth like 50 times or something, or more than that, in their lifetime. And it seems like every dinosaur that we find is based off of teeth. I mean, this is not a skeleton. Come on. They're all casts, whether they found an ankle bone or a kneecap or shin bone or what. Now, I'm not one of the people who says that dinosaurs didn't exist. Unless by dinosaurs you mean only the animals that lived millions of years ago. Those particular dinosaurs did not exist. Large animals, large reptiles, large birds, even large mammals existed, and they all existed recently, very recently. As humans grew in numbers, it became easy for them to eliminate species, and so the ones that they felt threats from, or the ones that they had tusks or something else that humans wanted, were slowly eradicated. So some of them may still exist. Pterodactyls or Dunkiosaurus may still be in caves or out in the ocean, but let me get into now exactly why I believe what I believe. The reason is because I look at evidence. And when people say that we should trust science and scientists and paleontologists, I'd like to agree. But when you learn that science is systematically lying, systematically destroying truth because it doesn't match their personal worldview, I get pissed. Science should be a search for truth no matter where it takes us. No matter where. I've pointed out before my issue with cosmology, and physicist George Ellis admitting that there are other models that match the observations, and a lot of cosmology, quote-unquote, tries to hide that. I've talked before about Edwin Hubble going against the observations to, quote, stay away from the horror of a unique position, end quote. And now let's talk about the systematic suppressing of scientific evidence that 1. Proves dinosaurs were recent. 2. That the evolution timeline is way off. And 3. That science doesn't want facts. They want facts that line up with their story. It's the story that they need to tell. What we're dealing with is no longer science, ladies and gentlemen. It's not science at all. When you have presupposed foundations that do not stand up to testing, and you continue to proclaim them as true or facts, when only those who agree with the foundations are allowed in the discussion, and when only the elect, only those you allow in, make the decisions and decide the doctrine, you are absolutely nothing more than a religion. And when you have snuck your way into school books and bullied your way into the pocketbook of the world, you're a problem. A big problem. You see, the story of dinosaurs matches the story of evolution. And here's what you need to face as a fact. If science realized that evolution was wrong, or if they realized that dinosaurs were recent, or that we didn't go to the moon, or that the earth was actually flat, you can bet your bottom dollar they'd hide it. Let's get into it. Richard Feynman was a great scientist, and he said some things better, I think, than anyone else Maybe he better explains my personal view better than anyone, but let's listen to him here talk about knowing and not knowing.
But also another thing has to do with the question of how do you find out if something's true? And if you have all these theories of the different religions, have all different theories about the thing, then you begin to wonder. Once you start doubting, which I think to me is a very fundamental part of my soul, is to doubt and to ask. And when you doubt and ask, it gets a little harder to believe. I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers which might be wrong. I have approximate answers and possible beliefs and different degrees of certainty about different things, but I'm not absolutely sure of anything, and there are many things I don't know anything about. But I don't have to know an answer. I don't feel frightened by not knowing things.
I mean, whoever has said that any better? I'm not scared of not knowing. I'm scared of knowing things to be true that aren't true. I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. It's much more interesting to live not knowing than to have answers that might be wrong. And sure, he believed in the mainstream scientific beliefs and believed in galaxies, but he understood science and he understood the true nature of science in that it cannot prove anything right. It cannot prove anything to be true.
But it can never be proved right because tomorrow's experiment may succeed in proving what you thought was right wrong. So we never are right, we can only be sure we're wrong.
And many or all scientists respect Richard Feynman. Lawrence Krauss, for instance, quotes him all the time.
And science has an ethos, which I think is very important, and Richard Feynman described it well. He said, the only way to have real success in science is to describe the evidence very carefully without regard to the way you feel it should be. If you have a theory, you must try and explain what's good about it and what's bad about it equally. In science, you learn a sort of standard integrity and honesty, whether you want to or not.
Okay, so Lawrence says that Feynman stated that if you have a theory, you need to explain what's good about it and what's bad about it. Has anyone ever heard any evolution believer tell you the issues with evolution? Of course not. To them, it's perfect.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. In that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
So the key to science is if it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong.
Full disclosure. As Feynman said, you're not allowed to pick and choose. If there's data that disagrees with your theory, you have to include it.
If there's data that disagrees with your theory, you have to include it. And all things are open to debate and question. It's a key aspect of science, right, Lawrence?
All things are subject to question, and that's a key aspect of science.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, I thought I've heard you before in the past say...
First, I want to, however, make a disclaimer, or not a disclaimer, I want to make a statement of fact. That evolution is a fact. There's no discussion, there's no debate, there's no nothing. It's one of the most successful and impressive scientific theories of all time.
Wait a second. What happened to following evidence? If it doesn't meet the test or experiment, then it's wrong. It needs to be questioned. Are you going to inform people what's wrong with evolution and what paleontologists are finding and what it means?
And it's the same with evolution. We can make predictions based on what we have observed from either fossils or the genetic relationship between mammals, and we can make predictions of a whole bunch of things which we can go out and test, and then for over 100 years, evolution has satisfied all of those tests.
Whoa. That's a lie. It is not standing up to tests. You can't just tell people it does. You can't tell them that for the last 100 years it has satisfied all those tests.
It just doesn't matter whether you believe it or not the Big Bang really happened. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, evolution is a fact. It's independent, and you should realize that fact, and therefore, first of all, not try and use it one way or another, but also not feel particularly threatened by it. Namely, if you cannot believe in God if evolution happened, then you better give up your belief in God. Give up your belief in God. Give up your belief in God.
We will get back to Lawrence in a few minutes, but now it's time to make sure everyone knows what's happening behind closed doors in science. Okay, so here's what I highly recommend you research if you care about the truth. If you're a NASA fanboy, or if you think science is run by superhumans who don't care about being proven wrong, who want someone to come along and prove that their previous 30 years of research and work was based on incorrect foundations, if you believe in this angelic vision of scientists who never lie, who never fudge results, who have no bias towards any worldview, then it doesn't really matter what I say anyway, because you've already dismissed it. You won't do the research because somebody already did. That's why we have peer review, right? So that you can sit at home and pretend to be smart. This is for those who understand that scientists are human, like everyone else. That scientists have pride, and that they have families to feed. And the heavy majority of them have a worldview that hates religion and hates the talk of the spiritual. And that's fine. But when your worldview affects the science, well, then we have issues, and people deserve to know if their money that is going to science and education and research is also being used to lie to them directly and to misinform children and paint a worldview that's simply false. A few years back, a few scientists started finding soft tissue in dinosaur bones. In summary, more started to find the same, then they started firing people and not letting the truth out. Why? Well, because that truth is that dinosaurs lived probably between 100,000 and 10,000 years ago. That is the truth that science cannot let out. And this should be a sign to you, if you realize this is the case, that there's a serious problem in science. Because once they have told people something is true or a fact, be it the moon landings, be it the age of dinosaurs or evolution, they will protect it no matter what. You may not even realize it's going on, but dinosaurs are relatively recent. Given the carbon-14 half-life of 5,730 years, all organic material, and the ones said to be over 250,000 years old for sure, should contain no detectable carbon-14. But almost without exception, organic samples from all of the current era, which goes back 532 million years, shows carbon-14. So that means all of it is less than 250,000 years old, and realistically it's more likely less than 50,000 years old. They continue to find these things, and as you can imagine, science has no choice but to lie, to terminate people, to threaten people, and to basically hide the truth. And this is why I pay no attention to those in the comments who call me an idiot and a moron, and you shouldn't pay them any attention either, because I know the truth. I am an idiot, and I am a moron. But what I also know is that science is afraid of facts. Now, I know a bunch of you might be saying,
how bizarre! How bizarre! How bizarre!
Well, it's even more than bizarre, but I've got a few clips here for you, and if you just follow this line of research and look it up for yourself, you will see the problem, which is clearly people are being fired for finding soft tissue in dinosaur bones. They're being told to find new evidence that disproves it. They're being told that it's impossible because science has a dogma that says dinosaurs are 50 or 67 million years old, period. There is no amount of evidence that you can bring that will change that, because you would change all of science. They won't allow that. Regardless of what the truth is, they cannot let that out. It's the same thing as gravity. Now we have dark energy and dark matter because they can never get rid of gravity, because that is their foundation. Everything's built on. They are a religion. You can't take down a religion's foundations, or else the religion goes away. That being said, let's start out with Mark Armitage. He was recently fired from Cal State Northridge for submitting a paper in which he found a triceratops horn with soft tissue inside. And what that means is that it would have dated probably to less than 50,000 years. So he was terminated by the college that he worked for his religious views, and just recently he settled out of court with them for his termination for a 6-digit sum. Now let's listen to him years ago. This is right after Mary Schweitzer found soft tissue inside of their T-Rex bone, make a prediction about the rest of bones that are out there. Now remember, nobody was looking for soft tissue in dinosaur bones because soft tissue lasts at most 50,000 years. Since dinosaur bones are all 67 million years or older, there was no reason for anyone to test for soft tissue. So he makes a prediction about what will happen if people go back and start looking into these dinosaur bones.
My prediction is this. The fossil record is full of soft tissue. This is the norm rather than the exception. That's my prediction. And so I invite whomever to prove me wrong. Go out and dig up the fossils. Do the decalcification. Do the microscopy. Because I want you to prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, I want to know it. But that's my prediction. This is the norm in the fossil record, not the exception.
And we've started to see that he is in fact correct. More and more, this is being found in the paleontology field. We're now going to watch a short interview with Mary Schweitzer after she had found her soft tissue in a T-Rex bone.
And one of the exciting things about this discovery, correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that this stuff was fossilized as it was. If 70 million years old, you don't expect to find soft tissue, do you?
Not at all. No. It was utterly shocking.
So you have to sort of rewrite the book as far as fossilization goes, I assume.
Well, that's the exciting part for me. I've always been very intrigued by how things change in going from a living being to part of the rock record. And like I said, a lot of our science doesn't allow for this. All of the chemistry and all of the molecular breakdown experiments that we've done don't allow for this. So if this material turns out to be actual remnants of the dinosaur, then yes, I think we will have to do some certainly rethinking of some of the basics of the model of fossilization.
You know, Mary, when I was reading about this story, I was amazed that in some of the capillaries, when you went to pull them, they snapped right back. Are you amazed at the quality of these remains?
Absolutely.
70 million years old, huh?
It's just doesn't seem possible. But yes, you can actually take the vessels, and they do have internal components, and so you can take a probe and kind of squeeze those things out into solution, and the vessels are fine. It's just, I can't explain it, to be honest.
Very cool.
Well, Professor Mary Schweitzer, congratulations, and thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
So you'll notice there that she said none of the current science allows for this. And she was right. And she can't explain it, of course, because soft tissue cannot last 70 million years. It can't even last 1 million years. In fact, with the amount of carbon inside these bones, they are likely less than 30,000 years old. We'll now listen to Bob Enyart talk about a speech that was given in 2012 at the Western Pacific Geophysics meeting in Singapore, in which a paper was submitted and a talk was given about 10 dinosaur samples from around the world that were all C14 dated at the University of Arizona using both the AMS and beta decay methods, and all of them dated between 22,000 and 40,000 years old. Well, immediately after the speech, they were handed a paper that basically told them that there was an obvious error in their data, and so their paper was removed even from the website as if it never happened. In the description, I'll list a before and after link. One link will take you to the paper before, showing that they were on the list to give the speech and everything. And then the other link will show you the current website, and when you go there, you'll see that they've been completely removed as if there wasn't a speech and no paper.
This was presented at a Singapore American Geophysical conference, and it was presented by an international team of scientists who took 10 different dinosaurs from multiple continents, had them carbon-14 data at the world's leading labs, and they showed the results. And after the fact, the American Geophysical Union censored their paper, removed all reference from their paper, and all they said was, we are getting measurable carbon-14 from dinosaur bones all over the world.
The main two authors of the tests were Jean de Pontichara and Marie-Claire van Oosterwich, who both have PhDs, one in physics and one in physical chemistry, and they're being censored for doing science. Anybody who can't see that there's an obvious problem there needs to open their eyes a little bit wider. Now we'll listen to Lawrence Krauss speak with Bob Enyart over the phone. And remember, Lawrence Krauss is the one that told us that there are no unshakable truths in science and that it's okay to question anything. Let's see how much he stands behind that statement.
And moreover, we have genetic and fossil evidence going back And everything
we have
agrees
blood
with 4.5
vessels.
billion years old us.
We have blood vessels.
4 billion years old. We have many fossils that are almost 1 billion years old, and we have a tremendous amount of evidence of exactly how life evolved on Earth. And why must people reject all the knowledge we have because they insist that there's
because of dinosaur blood vessels.
Why don't you open your mind to the evidence of reality and say, look, if there is a God, the God, as Galileo once said, if there is a God, he gave us a brain.
There's carbon-14 in the mosasaur fossil that has soft tissue. Harvard has sequenced proteins from a hadrosaur. Carbon-14 can't last 1 million years, yet it is everywhere.
Could it be contaminated? When there's a whole basis of knowledge, which tens of thousands of scientists have worked their whole life on, then people like you come along and say, I want to deny all that knowledge because I've decided in advance of reading anything, based on some book that was written God knows how long ago. That's closed-mindedness. That's not open-mindedness.
The anomalies are everywhere worldwide. There's carbon-14, diamonds.
And you might recall this conversation that we're going to listen to next with Bob Enyart talking with Jack Horner after Mary Schweitzer had found the soft tissue inside the T-Rex bone, and Bob Enyart offers $20,000 by the end to simply have that T-Rex bone, carbon-14, tested. So let's see if they had a problem with that.
Let me tell you where I'm coming from here.
Sure.
All right. Obviously, your group is a group of creationists.
Yes.
And the spin they can get off of it,
right,
doing it, is not going to help us.
Yeah. So even though it's just a scientific test, they're not asking for voodoo or anything.
It's not actually a scientific test. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Carbon-14 dating something with soft tissue in it. Jack, if I could raise $20,000, would it be worth?
Not going to help us. Not going to help us. Not going to help us.
Of course, that test was never done. And now we'll listen to a little bit more of Lawrence Krauss as he clearly shows that he is triggered by scientific evidence that goes against his preconceived worldview.
All right.
In every single bit of data, we have evidence.
The Neanderthal
evidence of civilization
Lawrence,
that are older than 10,000 years
Lawrence,
old.
the Neanderthal DNA has been sequenced.
Yeah, I know.
It's closer to you than a chimp is to a chimp within the same species of chimps. So the creationists who've been saying for decades that Neanderthals were people have been confirmed. DNA doesn't lie.
What do you mean people?
People. And so many atheists and evolutionists now saying that perhaps...
I don't know what you mean by atheists and evolutionists.
Well, there's some people who are atheists, some people are some people are not.
What do you mean by evolutionists?
People who believe molecules to man evolution. Neo-Darwinism.
What do you mean? Well, as I said,
can I tell you what they're saying before
the people who accept the evidence of empirical science?
The
same people who believe the Earth is round.
Those people. Well, the president of the Flat Earth Society is a Darwinist.
Well,
they operate
fine,
today.
I'm just saying he's an idiot for being a president of Flat Earth Society.
I agree with you. See, we agree on something.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Lawrence,
and all I'm saying is there are no scientists who aren't evolutionists.
Could I make my point?
So you believe in gravity.
Could I make my point so you can tell me I'm wrong?
They're on the same level of footing.
The question becomes, how many times does somebody have to lie to you before you call into question what they're saying? This is Lawrence Krauss again telling another lie. He just stated that there are no scientists who aren't evolutionists, even though he knows full well that there's a current list of 1,001, last time I checked, people who have signed the Scientific Dissent from Darwinism page. In fact, anyone who signs it must hold a PhD in a scientific field such as biology, chemistry, math, engineering, computer science, or one of the other natural sciences, or they have to hold an MD and serve as a professor of medicine. So to say that there are no scientists who aren't evolutionists is a flat-out lie. Let's look at one right now. Let's listen to Dr. James Tour, PhD. He holds over 120 patents. He was Scientist of the Year, 2013. He's a top 10 chemist in the world over the last decade, named by Thomson Readers, plus tons of other accolades. I'll bring up his Wikipedia here at the end. Let's hear what his opinion of evolution is.
Because I make molecules for a living. And I don't just buy a kit and mix this and get that. I mean, ab initio, I make molecules. I understand how hard it is to make molecules. I understand that if I take nature's toolkit, it can be much easier because all the tools are already there, and I just mix it in the proportions that, and I do it under these conditions. But ab initio is very, very hard. I don't understand evolution. Let me tell you what goes on in the back rooms of science. With National Academy members, with Nobel Prize winners, I have sat with them, and when I get them alone, not in public, because it's a scary thing if you say what I just said. And I say, do you understand all of this, where all of this came from and how this happens? Every time that I have sat with people who are synthetic chemists who understand this, they go, nope. These people are just so far off on how they believe this stuff came together. I have sat with National Academy members and Nobel Prize winners. Sometimes I will say, do you understand this? And if they're afraid to say yes, they say nothing. They just stare at me because they can't sincerely do it. I was once brought in by the dean of the department once, and many years ago, and he was a chemist, and he was kind of concerned about some things. I said, let me ask you something. You're a chemist. Do you understand this? How do you get DNA without a cell membrane? And how do you get a cell membrane without a DNA? And how does all this come together from this? He said, Jim, we have no idea. We have no idea. I said, isn't it interesting that you, the dean of science, and I, the chemistry professor, can talk about this quietly in your office? But we can't go out there and talk about this. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I posted on my website that I don't understand. And I said, I will buy lunch for anyone that will sit with me and explain to me evolution, and I won't argue with you until I don't understand something. I will ask you to clarify. But you can't wave by and say, this enzyme does that. You got to get down in the details of where molecules are built for me. So I sincerely want to know. I would like to believe it, but I just can't. Now, I understand microevolution. I really do. We do this all the time in the lab. I understand this. But when you have speciation changes, when you have organs changing, when you have to have concerted lines of evolution all happening in the same place in time, not just one line, concerted lines, all in the same place, all in the same environment, this is very hard to fathom.
In the description, I'll have links to James Tour's Wikipedia, as well as the Descent from Darwinism page, and also a link to the PDF of the 1001 signatories. Next, let's hear another quote by the same Dr. James Tour, read by Trey Smith.
My recent advice to my graduate students has been both direct and revealing. If you disagree with Darwinian theory, keep it to yourselves if you value your careers. Unless, of course, you're one of those champions for proclamation. I know that fire exists in some. So be ready for lead-ridden limbs. They're going to shoot at you the moment you come out and you start letting forth even a pinch of truth. He goes on. But if the scientific community has taken these shots at senior faculty, it will not be comfortable for the young nonconformists.
Next, let's listen to Professor Roberto Fundi. He's a specialist in paleontology. He teaches at the Department of Earth Sciences at the University of Siena in Italy.
You may be surprised to know that the fundamental assumptions upon which evolutionary thinking is based are not at all confirmed by paleontology. All the biological groups, from bacteria and blue-green algae to man, appear abruptly in the fossil record without any links connecting them with each other.
Why is it then that so many people believe the fossils prove evolution?
Evolution is presented to grown-ups and taught to the very young as a fact that has been verified and demonstrated for so long that it is a waste of time and even ridiculous to question it. So, what is the truth of the matter? Well, there is a history book of the past, and that is the rocks and the fossilized remains in them. So it is up to the paleontologist to read that book and give the answer.
And what do you read in that book, Professor?
The fact is that after nearly 2 centuries of intense research, the paleontological evidence for evolutionary theory is not only rare, but highly questionable. The point is that if evolution had really happened, the evidence would be in great abundance and incontestable.
Now, the only excuse that the scientific community has given as a reason that all these soft tissues have been found is that there is a heavy amount of iron present. That's what preserved the soft tissue. A heavy amount of iron preserved blood vessels and proteins for 67 million years. Here's Mark Armitage on the idea that it was iron that did it.
Well, the iron doesn't preserve the tissues, and this is akin to a 10th grade science experiment. As I mentioned, she basically soaked ostrich blood vessels in highly purified blood on a laboratory bench in an air-conditioned laboratory for 2 years. And she extrapolated out from that point and said, well, it's obvious this is what preserved these dinosaur tissues for millions of years, 68 million years. Well, let me say one thing to begin with. These are not fossils. These are dinosaur bones that have not fossilized because we have dissolved them in a weak acid. This, of course, is a mock-up, a casting of the condyle that we found, but this is real Triceratops frill, and we've dissolved this away in a weak acid, exposing the soft tissues within it. So these are not fossilized artifacts. These are the real bones that were buried in the ground.
So again, I say only that what you do from here is on you. If you want to pretend you didn't hear any of it, run away with your ears plugged, or if you want to follow the evidence, it's all on you. I'm looking for the truth, and I'd rather not know when dinosaurs were here, and not know how the sun works, and not know where I live, than to believe that dinosaurs went extinct 67 million years ago, and the sun is an internal convective sphere of hot plasma, and the earth has been here 4.54 billion years, and spinning and flying around the sun, and believing those, and they be lies. Lie to me once, shame on you. Twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6, 7, 12, 15. I was the idiot that let it happen over and over again. Not anymore. Before I go, let's listen really quick to Richard Dawkins. If I'm going to trash his evolution theory and call it nonsense, I want to give him a chance to explain it. A girl just asked him to explain molecules to monkey because she can understand monkey to man, but she doesn't understand how molecules can become a man or how molecules can become a monkey. So here he is explaining evolution. Oh, sorry, I forgot we're talking about Dawkins. My bad. Evolution.
The question says it's easy to imagine how apes could evolve into humans, but it's harder to imagine how bacteria could evolve into apes. Well, one very important difference is that the time it took for apes to change into humans is a matter of perhaps 5 million years, whereas the time it took for bacteria to evolve into apes was a matter of thousands of millions of years. So it is a huge difference. And what the human imagination is capable of visualizing gets more and more difficult the longer the time span is that you have to cope with. So the intermediates that you might expect to see would be, well, starting with bacteria, an early intermediate would be some kind of protozoan. That's to say, a single-celled animal, much more complicated than a bacterium because it's a eukaryotic cell, which means that it's actually a kind of society of bacteria. The eukaryotic cell, which is all our cells, and protozoan cells, things like amoebas, are complex societies of bacteria. Bacteria actually came together in an agglomeration, working together to form this much larger, much more complex cell. A next stage in the intermediates would be a coming together of those cells, those eukaryotic cells, to form multicellular bodies, something like a sponge. A next stage would be perhaps something like a sea anemone, which has an inside and an outside and has a feeding mechanism. The next stage would be something like a worm, which has a front and a back and a left side and a right side, and which propels itself along the sea bottom. The next stage might be something like a fish, which, well, we know what a fish looks like. Then Much later still, some fish started emerging from the water, and we have extremely good fossil evidence of this stage in evolution, when fish emerged from the water and became amphibians. At a later stage still, these amphibians no longer needed to go back to water to reproduce and became reptiles. At a later stage still, they became mammal-like reptiles. Instead of going along with their feet splayed out sideways like a lizard, they rose with their limbs more vertical. And they may have grown hair at this stage, we don't know whether they grew hair at this stage, and walked on all fours, and there was a magnificent flowering of mammal-like reptiles, actually before the dinosaurs. During the period of the dinosaurs, the mammals went rather into eclipse. When the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, the mammals started to flourish and flower and produce the magnificent range of mammals that we see today, among whom were some rather shrew-like ones who went into the trees and became adept at swinging through the trees. Some of them became adept at swinging from their arms rather than their legs. It's called brachiation. And they lost their tails, they became the apes, and that's where you wanted me to stop.
Well, that was terrible. Yeah, there's nothing else I can say about that. Terrible. Let's give one more person a chance to explain evolution. He's going to do it through the process of showing us emojis. Plus, I've added some of my own. Here he is, Bill Nye, the sex junk guy.
Hi, Bill Nye here, explaining evolution with emoji. Take a look at this one. It's a molecule. Now, molecules just happen. Look at any asteroid. It's loaded with amino acids, a carbon and oxygen. Well, somehow, probably with energy from the sun, these molecules hooked together and accidentally found ways to reproduce themselves, the same way crystals reproduce if you leave them alone for a while. Anyway, these self-replicating molecules could not make perfect copies of themselves, and the imperfections that helped them make more copies stayed there, kept getting reproduced and reproduced and reproduced. And pretty soon you had complicated things like bacteria. And then you got multiple bacteria becoming multiple multicellular organisms like poison ivy plants and barnacles and sea jellies and even my old boss. And the key to this is time. People used to think the Earth was a few thousand years old. Then they realized it was at least a few hundreds of millions of years old. Well, now, using radioactivity, we can tell you that the Earth is 4.54 billion years old. A lot can happen in 4.5 billion years. Get a mirror, take a look at yourself. We are all a result of evolution.
Ugh, gag me. All right, last clip, but important. Richard Dawkins lying. Oh, imagine that.
You talk about, for example, the fact that lizards, even in our lifetime, were moved to an island, right?
Yeah.
Where they never were before. And we saw it in just a matter of decades.
That's right. I mean, most of evolution happened before we were born and took much too long for us to see. But there are just a few examples, and these lizards is one. They were moved from one island in the Mediterranean to another. And within a couple of decades, they had evolved a completely new diet, and that had changed their jaws, even changed their stomachs, and they now got stomach valves. In just a couple of decades, just think what could be achieved in 1 million years, 100 million years.
So those are examples of evolution? New diets, new stomachs? Someone asked the man, when will they become bears? Alright, well here's my final rant. Evolution is a two-part mix. One part real, another part imaginary. Variation and adaptation are the real part. Animals surely adapt, we adapt, plants adapt, but what is never talked about is that there exists a limit to the adaptation. This was an intelligently included, intelligently designed limit. When we try and selective breed, we reach a limit. When scientists produced fruit flies with no eyes, after a few more generations, the eyes returned. When we tried it with plants, when we tried to get more milk from cows, the new line dies out or becomes sterile. Evolutionists want you to think that over time, new creatures emerge. Well, you should figure this out, but new creatures will never emerge. Ever. Richard Dawkins just sat there and said that within a few decades, lizards are changing their diet. That's evolution? I mean, come on, we all agree adaptation and microevolution take place constantly. If you can look at yourself, your brain, your digestive system, your eyes, your nose, any part of the complex makeup that you are, and think along with the laws of physics, the universe, the sun, the stars, the moon, If you think it's all here because of some stardust explosion from nothing, it all gathered together, and out of that came some sludge, then some bacteria, then insects, then beavers, then a monkey, and now you? If you really think that's what happened, then for you, maybe it did. You and I are a different species. I am a curious, conscious, free-thinking, inquisitive person, here by some sort of intelligent force or intelligent mind far beyond my ability to comprehend it. Maybe you are another species, possibly hallucigenia? Be kind, don't lie, and open your mind and find your own truth. This has been Jeranism. Till next time.